Okay, so on number one, the baseball problem. So one of the types of problems you're gonna have is a baseball problem. So everything we did we're doing on the notes is the same kind of problem we put on the test. We didn't change anything except the numbers
So we have to
or,
make it into a problem.
yes, you have, what do you mean you have to make it into a problem? Yeah, you do. Okay, so a baseball player has hit 25 of the last 40 pitches. How many more consecutive times, what does consecutive mean? In a row, right, in a row. How many more consecutive times will the player have to hit the ball to reach a hitting percentage of 75%? Okay, now first thing, you can use 75% or you can use it as a decimal. What would the decimal be? 0.75. So I don't care which one you use, percent or decimal. It doesn't matter to me. Okay, so here's what we have. We're going to say what our x is going to be. Okay, your x is going to come from your question. So if it says how many more consecutive times will the player have to hit the ball, x is going to be that. X is going to be the number of consecutive times the player has to hit the ball. Okay, so the reason we write that, we want to say, well, what is x? That way when you put in your equation, you always match up the correct parts. Okay, so you're going to say what x is, and that just comes from the question. If they're asking, like on number 2, how many more water bottles, that's what x is. How many more water bottles are you going to have? Okay, so then let's set up our one fraction. We're going to set up the fraction for hitting average. Who are my baseball people in here? Dominic? How do you find that hitting average?
You take the number of times you hit the ball divided by how many at-bats you have.
Right, so on top we have the number of hits, so how many times you hit the ball, over how many times at bat or the number of pitches, whatever you'd like to say there. Okay, so when you're doing these, you're going to use, if it's a baseball problem, that's what you're going to use. Number of hits over number of pitches. The next one is going to be a cost problem. We'll get to that in a second. Okay, so we're going to set up two sides of the equation. Okay, so we're going to have a fraction on the left and a fraction on the right. This is why I say you might want to go to the back or separate sheet of paper. There's not near enough room on here. Okay, so on the left, let's start with the hitting percentage they want to reach. So you can do one of two things. You can do 75 over 100. Okay, so if you want to use 75, you want to use whole numbers. You can do 75 over 100, or you can use 0.75 over 1. That is up to you. This is a like one less step, but you have a decimal. This one is one more step, but you don't have a decimal. So which one do you want to use today?
Fraction.
The fraction? I'll do both. I'll do the whole number here, and I'll do the decimal on this side. That way you can see them. So whatever you want to write on your paper, whichever one you think you'll use. So if you're doing decimal, on the left you'll have 0.75 over 1, but the right side will be the same. Okay, so then the right side, make sure I use the right marker. How many hits has he hit?
25.
25. So on top, we're going to say he's hit 25 out of 40. And we want to add x to that because we want to find out, well, how many consecutive times for him to get to the 75%. So we add x to the top and we add x to the bottom. And now all of a sudden you have a rational equation. How do you solve a rational equation? What do you find first? Technically, yes.
LCD.
Just not how I taught it, but you can do that. Yeah, let's find the LCD. So the LCD on these is very simple. You need the 100 and you need the 40 plus x. So both of those are in your LCD. If you're doing the decimal one, what is your LCD?
40 plus x.
Yeah, just the 40 plus x. What do you do after you find the LCD? Multiply it by everything. Okay, so if you're doing this one, multiply the left by 40 plus x, and the right. If you're doing this one, both sides get multiplied by the 100 times 40 plus x. So what crosses out on the left side? The 100, right. So I know this was a couple days ago. The 100 crosses out, so we're left with 75 times 40 plus x equals, what crosses out on the right?
40 plus x.
Yeah, the 40 plus x. So on the right side, we have 100 times 25 plus x. So I want you to take this where I'm at in green and solve for x. Distribute on both sides and solve for x. So if you distribute 3,000 plus 75x equals 2,500 plus 100x. So you have x's on both sides and you have numbers on both sides. How do you get x by itself? Yeah, combined like terms, you've got an x on each side and a number on each side. You can subtract whichever way. I'm going to move the 75x to the right, just because I like positives if I can. So that's going to go away. And I'm going to move the 2,500 to the left. So we get 500 equals 25x. And divide by 25. What did you get for x?
20.
Yeah, 20. So we'll say 20 consecutive hits. Okay, so a pack of 6 flavored waters cost $4. So if you buy a pack of 6, you pay $4. A single bottle, so one bottle costs $1. It says if one pack of 6 waters is purchased, how many additional single bottles, so there's what our x is going to be, how many additional single bottles would need to be bought for the average cost, this is important, average cost to be 80 cents per bottle. Okay, so on the first one, the batting one, we did average, the hitting average. This one is average cost. Okay, so you still have an average in there somewhere. So let's start with what is x?
Additional single bottle.
Yeah, how many, we'll say the number of additional single bottles needed. So when they ask that question, how many what, that's what your x is. And I want to see that on your paper. Okay, so after that on the baseball one, we did the average here. So instead of hitting average, now we have average cost. So average cost you find by taking the total cost and dividing it by the total number of bottles. So total cost divided by total bottles, or how many water bottles you buy. So as soon as Lauren. Okay, so just like on the baseball one, we had 2 things, one on the left one on the right. We're gonna have the same thing here. So on the left, on the baseball one, we did our hitting average. So here, let's do average cost. You have 80 cents per bottle, so you can do the decimal if you want. If you don't like decimals, then you do 80 over what? 100. If you're doing the decimal, that's fine. 0.80 over 1. Okay, so then over here, we have our total cost. So how much did they pay? $4. So 4, and how many bottles did they get? 6. And then we say, well, we want to see how many additional they need. So we add X to each one. It's going to be this every single time, whether you're doing the baseball one or you're buying water bottles or whatever. You have your average on this left side, and over here you have the totals, and you add X. So now find the LCD.
Is it 100 and then 6 plus X?
Perfect. So the LCD, the 100 and the 6 plus X. What do we do with the LCD after you find it?
Multiply it to both sides.
Perfect, yeah, multiply it to both sides. So 100 times 6 plus X and 100 times 6 plus X. Good, cross out the 100s, cross out the 6 plus X. And then this is the part you guys are all pretty good at. Write out your equation and then just solve for X. So the hard part is making sure you have it set up right. So distribute on the left. What is that, 480? Plus 80x. Equals 400 plus 100x. Plus, yeah. Okay, and the same thing you're at the last problem. You can solve for x, move either one to whichever side you want. I'm going to move the smaller number over so I don't have negatives. Which means I'm going to subtract the 400 to the left. If you're doing the decimals, you should get the same answer as me. So we have 80 equals 20x. Divide by 20. 4. So 4 additional